able to, there you go.
All right, so welcome everybody. CE 129, session number 2. So we got 6 weeks of sessions here with this class. We're already a third of the way. We're getting right into week 2 here. Week 1 was a lot of fun. We had a great joint session last Thursday night with Chef Nick and I, and a lot of good participation, which was great. I had really, I don't know, there was some pep in my step on Monday night because we really went the distance with that live session and had a lot of fun with it. And I just motor mouth Chef Jamie over here, just could not shut up. So we went almost an hour. That's not going to be typical. I think the first week was probably good just to kind of, raise some engagement and kind of get the juices flowing. We had a lot of things that were hitting home for people. And that's what this class for me is really all about for you guys. I find it's very cross industry. It doesn't have to be just food service related. It can be related to any leadership, experiences that you've had. And that's why the engagement and the participation really tends to kind of come out with all the students, because a lot of this stuff hits home to you. So tonight we're going to jump into week 2. How you doing tonight, Chef Nick? Anything to throw out there about CE 129 and how much we love it? I know you love it too.
Yeah, I mean, we all saw kind of how week 1 went. It went by very quickly, and a lot of good questions, good energy. So let's keep it up with week 2. Even in my bonus live session on Tuesday, it started out with like a smaller class, then a few more people came, and it was almost a whole hour. So same as you, Chef. Like I think there's just so much to talk about, because it's more than just a recipe. It's our experiences. It's advice. That's why I always tell everybody in this class, we're here to give advice. I can't tell you exactly how to live your career out or anything like that. All I could do is kind of give you some direction, and whether or not you take it is up to you. But there is great information that pertains to our weekly assignments and our discussions and things like that as well. So that's what we're here for, is for that, as well as Chef Jamie and my experiences and everything like that. So
yeah,
I love this class.
Yeah, it's the best class. I mean, this really is the best class that you're going to go through. All the classes are great. There's interesting stuff in it, and some of you will have passions for certain things, and it's going to really stand out. But this class speaks to everyone across the board, and it's true. It's just such an expansive question to be answered. What do I do in any moment? Knowledge. We talked about this a lot on Monday, but knowledge is a real gift, and to learn from each other is a really, really unique thing that we should all kind of embrace and really try to go the distance with it. It helps a couple of things. For one, it helps you stop thinking that you're right. It kind of brings your ego into check a little bit and say, I'm going to listen to this person, whether it's a dishwasher, whether it's a busser, whether it's, the head of the company. There's always something to learn from people, and you take it for that. And you always have something to teach as well. So that whole coaching and teaching relationship between people and peers is a wonderful thing. And it's, tonight we're going to be talking a little bit about SOPs and, just standard operating procedures and training and hiring and how that looks. Which to me is one of the most important parts of any business, any team, and growth, right? How do we add value to our business and push it, push the ball down the field, as we would say. So there's just a lot to it, but SOPs, the other side of that is there's a lot of what I call tribal knowledge. There's things that we just learn. Chef Nick has shared lots of things with me, and I've shared things with him where these are not things that are just documented somewhere. In manufacturing, sometimes you say, I want to see where the documentation is that shows me that I'm supposed to take the yellow cup and put it on the red cup for this reason. We don't always have that stuff documented in this business. There's a lot of things changing, and it's an ever evolving business. Food is always changing, and there's a lot of trends out there and things happening. So to get hung up on SOPs can be a detriment to you. You want to embrace the tribal knowledge a little bit and kind of learn as you go, all kinds of things that are just not written in any book. So that's a little piece on SOPs. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. We're going to go through a quick slideshow. And then after we're done, we'll take some Q&A. I'm going to talk about this week's assignment. So this week, let me share my screen here real quick. Forgot how to do that, Chef Nick. There we go. All right. So in our week 2 here, right? It's not a whole lot different. We're still going to have 2 graded discussions, just like last week. We've got our week 2 lesson, and then we have some additional readings this week. Okay. So in the lesson, it's the same thing. You're just going to jump right in. It's going to take you through a short little hiring and training module. There's a little bit of interaction there. It's great. Do that first. It's going to be a wonderful thing. They probably should have put the readings beforehand. So maybe do the readings first, then go through the module. Either or, you're going to obtain some knowledge in there, and there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff that's going to help you with the assignments this week. So these 2 assignments that we're looking at, we've got our week 2 knowledge check. Super easy. You're going to have a knowledge check every single week. Knock that out right when we get done with class tonight. Everything that we're going to talk about is going to be in that knowledge check. If you want to knock out the readings first, go for it. Get yourself squared away and then just do it. It's going to take you 45 minutes and you're going to be all done. Written 2 assignment. Okay. This is an actual graded assignment by Chef Nick and myself. It is an assignment that you are going. It's a little bit interactive, and there's a little bit more to it. It changed a little bit from last block. This week, this round, it looks a little bit easier. Essentially, through those readings, you're going to see a few different pieces of information that are going to speak to these 3 questions. You're going to have 3 questions here. Here they are. Create a standard operating procedure for washing your hands properly, right? We all think we know the best way. There is a very specific way that's correct. And when you go through the readings, you're going to see everything there, reference the readings, and all you're going to do is click the drop downs, and you're just going to select which one it would be first, right? What do we think? Anybody have an idea there? What would be the first one that you would do?
You wet your hands.
Right there. Yep, that's what I would say. Probably the first one, right? So you're going to go through, you're going to see the right proper, I call it order of operations, right? So that's going to be your test right there. If you get one wrong, it's not going to be the end of the world. You might mix 2 of them up, but look at it. It's very specific, okay? Second one, create a standard operating procedure for washing dishes in a 3-compartment sink. Does anybody remember kind of the 3 rules for washing in a 3-compartment sink? What's in the first sink? What's in the second? What's in the third? Francisco, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
The first sink is water, disinfectant, and then water.
Well, yeah, it'd be wash, rinse, sanitize, right?
Yeah.
So you had the 2 second there, very close, right? It doesn't sound like you wouldn't sanitize or went into water. It wouldn't be terrible, but very, very close, right? So you want to wash. There needs to be a certain temperature there. So you're going to wash in the first sink with soap. Then you're going to rinse all the soap off, and then you're going to sanitize and let it air dry. So every time you go through here, it's going to be perfect. Some of it's a little bit subjective, so when we go through it, there may be a couple of things we say, well, front or back, if you're doing one of these things, it's actually okay. And then the third one, create a standard operating procedure for dicing potatoes. We already have done that, right? We know how to dice potatoes. We know what to look for. I'm sure that we could look at this right here and have a good idea on what we're going to do first. What do you think, Francisco? You got an idea?
Wash and scrub.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I heard somebody spit it out.
Wash and scrub potatoes.
Wash and scrub the potatoes. Now that's probably correct, but if you look at it, we also see, if you see some of the other stuff that's in there, there's sanitize work area and tools, set up your work area. That might be at the beginning too, right? So it's funny, it is a little subjective. You could wash the potatoes and then before you start working, sanitize your station, right? But if you're going to set up your work area, kind of get that proper mise en place in place. So there's some stuff that's going to speak out as far as the CU 101 class, and then something that you're going to uncover during the readings, okay? So very, very simple, just three questions, you answer them. I believe you only get 1 attempt. Maybe there's more attempts. I don't know. Shefnik, do you know anything on that?
I believe it's just 1 attempt, but I believe you might be able to go back and re-edit. I
Yeah.
would have to check with our
Yeah.
leads.
It would make sense that I guess
yeah,
they
it might
could
be like
do
an
it,
assignment.
Yeah, it might be more like
Yeah.
an assignment. It might be a bit of a hybrid. So try to do it in the first shot. If you get it done and you can go back and recheck it, absolutely go for it. Okay. All right. So we're going to jump right into this week's material. So hiring and training, some of the most important stuff you can do for your team, without a doubt. My mantra on being successful in the food business, and really in any business, is one word: retention. Okay. And the reason that's so important, retention means to retain, right? To keep. So when we're hiring and training people, what should be our goal? It should be to retain them. Keep them. Exactly. It's way, way, way less expensive to continue to move people up through the company rather than hire and train new people all the time. We hear about turnover, right? That's a constant word that we hear in the restaurant business, turnover. And we know that this business has a high turnover, and that's for a varied amount of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why that is. But if you can get your retention to really be perfect and really retain your employees, a few things happen. One, you spend a lot less money on your turnover. Okay. The biggest thing that happens is you have employees who get really, really proficient at their job. They start to master it. And as they master it, they get more comfortable and they learn more things. All of a sudden you have cross utilization on stations and in different departments, right? So now you have easier schedules to write. You can start to pull people from areas. You can adapt to situations. So it makes you a little more functional. On top of people being really good at their jobs, they get to know each other. They start to form a really, really nice, close niche, bond with the employees next to them. Because don't get me wrong, sometimes in these restaurants, we're going to battle, we're going to war with this thing. It's like a real serious, soccer game, and it's like you want to win every night. And when you think about, them getting really good at their jobs, front of house staff being around for a long time, they get to know the regulars, they start to build regulars. all of a sudden people are coming in 2 and 3 times a month rather than once a month on their birthday, right? So there's just that piece where the business starts to run on all cylinders, and you just have a lot more accountability and a lot more control around what people can do. Plus, you can start to, these building blocks of development, it really, really stacks up and starts to really happen for you. So I've been lucky enough to have a couple of teams, underneath me that I was able to kind of start from scratch and really kind of see that come to fruition. And when you see that well-oiled machine really working, and you can kind of, I always say, slowly tippy-toe back, where it's just like they're just doing it, quietly back away. And look, they're doing it. They're all doing it, and they don't need you to be holding their hand and running all over the place. It's a really, really great feeling. Profitability goes up, everything goes up. So it's a really, really great combination of domino effects that happen. Okay. That was the first slide. I really went far on that. So let's go ahead and let's jump right into it. You can see my passion for it, guys. I'm just like, nothing's more important than training. It really isn't. And I'll show you the multitude of reasons why. Okay. So we already kind of went through this. So when you're hiring, very important steps. Okay. If you can hire from internally, meaning inside the restaurant or inside the operation, inside your 4 walls, you can take somebody from point A and put them in point B and train them. A lot of things are going to happen. One, they're going to catch on real quick because they already know where the bathroom is. They already know what the core values are. They already know the policies and the people, right? So they know how to get things done. It's a great way to go. You don't have to bring somebody in. Posting stuff on the internet, obviously the easiest way. The internet is the way. It's funny because we have a newspaper here in this shot. You're never going to find jobs in the newspaper anymore. I don't even know why they still exist, but they do. Using a resume filtering software, okay? Really, really big. You go on to like ZipRecruiter or any of these other job sites, they've got a very specific, filter that's in there. Do you have a minimum of 4 years fine dining experience? Chef Nick would check that as yes. Many others would be like, I only have 2 years, I only have a year. It was kind of upscale casual. It's like, it's going to not let you feel comfortable to check the box on that. So it's really going to, condense down your application so you don't have 1,000 applications coming in to go through. Job fairs, of course, are interesting. Schools can be good. ACF, a lot of this stuff can happen, but nothing really for me beats word of mouth, honestly. We don't even have it listed here, but to recruit from inside the restaurant, you find a couple of really strong employees who you just know are in the business, have been around for a while. They definitely have a lot of friends in the business. You get them to recruit their friends. Sometimes you give them a little signing bonus. Hey, if you bring me an application, I hire them, I'll give you $50 if they will stay here for 3 months. There's some really, really good ways. Plus, when you're pulling people in who already have set rhythms with other employees, that's a win, right? You got some rhythm going. That's going to be an automatic dynamic that's going to work. So there's a lot of good reasons to really just put the notice out and say, hey, everybody, get your friends in here. We need some staff. It's a really, really nice, especially if you have a really good core staff and they can pull a lot of people in for you. And then, when you're making job listings, make sure they're extremely accurate. For me, it's like, if you're going to post an ad, it's just like posting a menu. You're representing your business, you're representing yourself, as a department head looking for help. You want to have all your spelling right. You want to be accurate with the pay and with the development piece. All the stuff that goes along with it, you want to be accurate, okay? So when you're conducting an interview, today we're talking more about being the interviewer, okay? So when you're interviewing somebody, there's a lot of things that you want to do that are very specific. Being on time, of course, respect their time. They are technically, if you're calling them in for an application, I consider them one of our staff almost. They are basically our people for a short period of time and potentially for the long run. But you need to give them a lot of respect. They're still coming in to interview. They could turn into be a diamond in the rough. You need to give people utmost respect, okay? Stay relaxed, go through it. You don't have to make it an uptight, crazy thing. It's just you're going to sit down and have a conversation with somebody and let them tell you about themselves, Use in-depth follow-up questions. So that basically it means like, oh, have you, enjoyed being in the business up until now? How long have you been in the business? And they say 5 years. And you go, oh, great. And you just take a little note. It's like, okay, well, you might want to go down a little further with that. Or maybe you're asking, I like to know about why they left their last job and see what they say. You want to let them do some talking. But when they give you those one-word answers, you got to kind of dig a little bit, just kind of go after it a little bit and say, okay, and kind of go down the rabbit hole a little bit and see where it goes. Because sometimes they might open up and make a mistake and you go, red flag. I don't know if I'm going to feel comfortable hiring this person, or it's going to open up a whole other plethora of passions that really you're after and they weren't getting there on their own. So there's just like a lot of good stuff that can come out of that. Keeping really good notes. Absolutely. If you're interviewing, like we call it blitz hiring. If you're doing like a blitz hiring event, you are basically trying to hire, say 5 servers, 10 servers, maybe you have 8 back of house positions that are, you need to get. You're going to take a lot of applications if the unemployment is correct in your town, So if you're there and a lot of people looking for work, you may take 30, 40, 50 applications and interview 20 of them, so like you really need to keep solid notes so that you can remember, everything that was going on with those people. And then complete the interview. If someone says, oh, I don't really have, really good transportation right now, and you're just kind of like, oh, I had to deal with that with someone last time, I just don't want to deal with that again. Finish the interview, right? Don't cut it short and be like, unfortunately, because you don't have a car, you got to go. Thank you very much. Just kick them out. Give them respect, finish the interview. You may want to kick it up a notch and do it quicker, but certainly don't cut it down in the middle. Okay. All right. So I'm going to skip one of those slides because I just don't like it. Questions you can ask. That's the important one. We had a can ask. You can ask a lot of things. What you can ask is really what's important. Okay. So how long have you been at your current address? That's kind of an interesting question to just kind of see, you don't have to necessarily say it like that, but you could say, are you from this area? How long have you been here? Oh, what brought you to this area? Dig a little bit and just kind of see, are they here just for college? Are they here just for the summer because they go to college somewhere else and they're here visiting their family? These are things you want to know. Do you want to hire somebody for just 2 months? If you're in a seasonal restaurant, maybe that's what you're doing. If it's not, maybe that's not going to work for you. Why hire someone for 2 months, let them get really good at their job, and then they're going to take off back to school? So there's some stuff that's in there. You definitely cannot ask, are they pregnant? Okay. You can't ask, are you trying to have a family? That's getting around to it. Those are personal questions. You can't ask them questions about disabilities, right? Are they a member of a fraternity? It's kind of things that are not really, it's almost like you're going to be judging them on it, right? So it's open to be discriminatory, basically. Have you filed for workman's comp? That shouldn't matter. If they were injured on the job, maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but it's none of your business, right? And then, do you go to church? Obviously a big one. Religious stuff, we can't be asking that kind of stuff, okay? So you gotta be very specific about what you're gonna ask. Keep it professional, keep it related to the position, keep it related to their experience, and you can ask some questions and let them just bring the answers to you. You don't always have to be digging too much. All right, so policies and procedures. Very important stuff. This is like the building blocks and framework for bringing staff into the building. So we've looked at somebody, we've hired them, and we said, okay, we're going to bring this person in full time, and we're going to give them a run. We think they're going to be a great addition to the team, and they're going to fit in with everyone, and their skills and talents definitely are there. So when you're thinking about onboarding somebody, a lot of times we'll call it that, onboarding, or just filling out their paperwork and getting them into the program or into the class, into the business. We're going to have a standard operating procedure piece. We're going to go through some stuff. Procedures for each task. Do we ensure consistency for the employees and the guests? Very important. When some employees come in and they get this and some get that, it causes a lot of conflict down the road because they're not being taught the same thing, right? Tasks should become automatic. Automatic, is a funny word. You want people to sort of perform certain tasks a little bit robotically, but you want them to have their own unique personality too. So you don't want to really just be throwing them to say, hey, be a robot and just do these things. Recipes are a great place to have some standard operating procedures, right? I always say this business is about a lot of things. We can list 2 or 3 or 4 things that are very, very important, but if you can't be consistent nowadays, it's like consistency matters. And if you can't build a recipe correctly and replicate it over and over again, especially if you're in a busy restaurant, Chef Nick knows what I'm talking about. You need to be able to batch stuff. Chef Nick was talking about making 20 gallons of French onion soup. That stuff doesn't happen just willy-nilly by people throwing things into a pot. Eventually he gets his recipe down and says, okay, I want to duplicate this. And then you want someone else to do it. As chefs, a lot of times we get hung up by doing everything ourselves because we don't think anyone can do it better than us. And if you don't standardize recipes, you can never teach someone how to do it. And you're going to be the go-to, right? So unless you want to make it yourself every single time, I got really tired of making stuff myself. So I really got hot to trot on standardizing recipes and being able to train and coach and teach our people to do it. So I could kind of, slowly back away from the operation so that I'm not always there. Employee handbooks, very, very important, right? I'm sure many of you have seen an employee handbook. It's just the basic information for the employees. Nothing too crazy, but it's got our core values, right? What the company stands for, what we're trying to provide to the community and to our employees, what we think about things, some of our corporate social responsibility pieces, what we're doing for the community. There's a lot of stuff in those core values. And then of course, a mission statement, which is along the same line, a little bit different though, but more about what we plan to do, right? What do we want this company to be, where we see ourselves? And then set expectations and standards. Go here. Okay, always up here with the standards and expectations. If you can set the standards high, clearly deliver and explain the expectations, you're going to be able to really easily coach and teach people. I always find with coaching and teaching in the hiring process, it's really important to, before you hire them, is to kind of get some commitments from people. If you talk to them about development, you talk to them about how we coach and teach our employees, how we hold a very high standard and we have high expectations for our people. And we need to be able to have our employees be approachable so that we can coach them at the right moments. How do you feel about being coached constantly by your peers and by your direct reports? And if they say, oh, I feel like I'm a very coachable person. I mean, I feel like I like to be coached. I like to learn. I have no problem with it. You get a commitment from them. So I just want to be clear, you feel okay making a commitment that you're going to be approachable and be able to be coached, within reason, of course. I mean, it's all about timing, right? But that's a great way to move down the field and then hit that coaching and teaching moment. If you get some blowback from them, you can just go right back to the interview. Remember when we had this conversation? This is what I need from you. It's very easy to be upfront and kind of get those expectations out there. Code of conduct, very, very important. Okay. It establishes a baseline for ethical behavior, how they're allowed to behave in the restaurant. No alcohol use, no drug use in the building, sexual harassment stuff. Everything about how they're going to treat each other with respect, how we're going to work with our employees, how we're going to treat guests. It's really, really important stuff. Theft policies. There's just so many things. Food policies, what they're allowed to eat. Are they going to be sneaking food? Like, how does that work? What they're allowed to order. So it sets the culture, and it's basically, it's more about letting them know what we would like them to be. It's not about, punishing them. It's about, hey, this is how we want to operate as a company. And that's why we hired you, because we think you hold these values and that you're going to be able to kind of be a shining star for us in the department. And that's a really great way to put it to people. All right. So with standard operating procedures, a lot of times we call them SOPs, right? So a standard operating procedure offers detailed written instructions, okay, documentation on how to perform a routine business activity, okay? Super, super straightforward boilerplate right there. It's basically showing them how to, just like we're doing right now. We have a recipe, we have, a video SOP, but that SOP, it's right there in the recipe. So we do have a standard operating procedure on how we're going to build a French onion soup. It's basically an SOP. It's a very solid recipe. All we do is we're translating that to how do we talk to guests? How do we bus tables? How do we make this drink? How do we greet people at the door? How do we? Goes and on and on and on. How do we close the building down? How do we open the building down? How do we set each other up for success? Okay. So when you're going through it, essentially that's what I just went through, right? Plating instructions, cleaning instructions, greeting and seating, there's so many things. There's never ending things, but these are really right there would be a very good start to, getting those SOPs down. All right, so here's a good example, right? Generally speaking, when breaking down a hotline station, how do we do it? First, you turn off the equipment, let things cool down a little bit. Correctly store leftover food product. You want to get all your food stored up, cleaned, rolled, topped off, whatever your procedure is, and put away, right? That's doing a couple things. It's getting the food back into its cooler and back into its rotation correctly. Sometimes you're throwing some away, but you're also getting food covered and away from the line so that when you start to clean, you're not going to get any splashes or shrapnel, as I call it, from a soapy bucket or from a degreaser or some other cleaning product you're using. So chemicals and food, right? They don't mix. So best thing to do is correctly store all your leftover food. Break down your cold storage equipment, get things to the dishwasher, right? Because they have a job to do. So you want to get things over there, clean your hot equipment. Then you're going to wash and sanitize everything top to bottom and be super, super clean about it. And then you can put everything away. So it's a really interesting order of operations to be doing it. It makes sense from a food safety standpoint and operationally working within the team. Okay. There may be more or fewer steps, right? Depending on the type of amount of equipment it is, you get the idea. All right. So we can go through this real quick, but essentially when you're thinking about employees and having a really solid training piece, it's our responsibility as employers or as leads to set our people up for success, right? We're not bringing people on so that they can struggle and have, really tough shifts and on a really tough time. Two things can happen. One, morale drops, and it's just like there's no, you're always the one who's to blame for this stuff. If you can't run the operation correctly from a leadership position, you need to figure out how, because you owe it to your people, or you're going to start losing people and you're going to just be doing it all yourself. People leave when they have no confidence in the higher ups. Okay. And I'm telling you, if you're at a certain level, your higher up is to blame also, and the higher up above them and above them. All that success, all that setup for success comes downhill. It's not the dishwasher's fault that you were not bringing them in at the right time, or that you let things happen this way, or that things happen this way. It needs to be under control, right? So they want to come in and be set up for success so they can be successful and you can have some long-term retention out of them. 76% of employees looking for career growth. That's a big number. That means that everyone who's hired is always looking for the next position. Can I move up? You get hired as a salad guy. Can I learn how to do desserts? Can I learn how to do fry? Can I learn how to do saute? Can I learn how to do grill? Can I learn how to inside expo? Can I learn how to outside expo? Can I go outside? There's a lot of stuff going on that they want to learn how to do. it means more money too, but you're happy to pay it. If someone can do everything, that's a great thing. 69% believe the company training is the most important benefit. For me, if I ever show up in a building and there's just no training, it's just kind of like, yeah, we do it like this, like, yeah, whatever. It's just kind of like willy-nilly. That's just takes the wind out of my sails. Like, I just am not into it. I want to be led, right? People want to be led, no matter how independent they are. They want to be led to be successful. So it's our job to do that as leaders. 40% of employees with poor training leaving the first year. Remember that turnover, right? So how important is hiring and training for retention? Very important. You want to bring people in, you want to acclimate them to the company, understand the core values, get the SOPs down, and then make it stick, as I say. How do you make things stick with people? If they're not sticking, then you're in this constant coaching and teaching piece. How do we make it stick so that we can move on to the next thing? We don't want to talk about the same thing over and over and over again. We want to at least not the same people. 69% of employees are already looking for better opportunities, which means everyone's on Craigslist and on Indeed and on ZipRecruiter all the time, looking for the next best thing. The grass is always greener, so we want to minimize the amount of things that are negative for the employee and really maximize that positivity, really solid work environment, team growth, things that are happening. When you have the sales coming in, that fixes everything. We're successful. It opens up opportunities for you to redistribute profits and funds into the team and continue the growth. So it's just like, it's an all or nothing sort of thing, in my opinion. And then companies that invest in training enjoy 24% higher profit margins. Okay. That's absolutely true. That is the key to retention, the money. How do we get more money? We want to grow top line sales, and we want it all to flow through to the bottom line, our profits, and that's just, we're all here for a lot of reasons. Passion is hopefully the number one reason, but at the end of the day, we're all trying to make money and add value to ourselves. So how do we do that and to our operations we're in? And then orientation, this is a really simple way, to just kind of start people out. You don't want to rush orientation. We go through the hiring process. Maybe there's a second interview with a higher up, whatever the process is. Now we have them here and we're going to go through this orientation. You want to go over everything. You don't want to rush it. You want to be able to speak fluently to it and give them a really solid overview of the company's mission statement, the values, the goals, the culture, right? What kind of a team are we? We watch each other's back. We work hard. We play hard. We're essentially a work family, and that's a lot of times what you get, especially in these companies that have less than 50 employees. You can really have some amazing stuff going on. And then what the employee's role is, and that's great. Really in depth. You're going to be one of our line cooks. We're starting you here. This is what your shifts are going to look like. Paperwork, of course, in that onboarding process, you go through all their tax information, and then a thorough tour of the establishment. Not just like, yeah, take a look around. No, you show them where the employee area is. This is where you put your coat, right? This is where you can put your stuff. Don't leave it here. There's some theft. If you have anything valuable, leave it in your car. Here's the bathroom. Here's this, here's that. You take them a full walkthrough and show them everything. Right out the back door, the dumpster. Here's the walk-in. Here's dry storage. No matter what position they are, they want to know where everything is. So they're not fumbling around. Where do I go? It's a horrible way to feel. Set them up for success from day one. And then, of course, the meet the team. That's a great way to go through. And, it's funny. My sister recently took a job with one of the local hospitals here, the big hospital in our local town. And it was really neat because I had never seen this before, but she actually had an email come through with an e-card from every employee in her department, all saying, welcome to the team in their own words, handwritten. It was like really, really special. I thought that was just like a real wow factor. We want wow factor for our guests, but we want wow factor for our employees too. I mean, what an amazing way to feel to just be like, hey, welcome to the team. You're going to do great. We're so excited to meet you. That's a lot of thought going into orientation and meeting the team, right? So pretty neat stuff. And the last slide here, just as far as training, right? You want to have standardized training programs, that employee development piece. Where do they go from here? How do we develop our employees? What is the verbiage we're using to try and help them along and have them feel like they have somewhere to go rather than, oh, I guess I'm just going to be a fry guy for the rest of my life. You might want to make sure that they understand what the roadmap is and then deliver on it. You can't just say, oh yeah, we want to do development. We want to do this and that. We want you to be a part of the team for good. And we could see you down the road doing this and that. Well, that's a long play, like what does that look like? Every 3 months, 6 months, evaluations, one-on-ones, development plans, SMART goals. We talked about SMART goals last week. How do we put those into practice and give them some real things, attainable things that they can work on and then can be evaluated later so that their growth can come along, right? So, it doesn't always work out perfectly, but you certainly want to have those roadmaps available to people, right? Proper training manual, ongoing, always be training, of course, always be coaching and teaching, always looking to be better. And then, you know, some of the rationale behind this stuff, the whys, right? We always talk about the whys. Have that objective, the plan on how you're going to do it. You know, what are they going to do? And then the evaluation, of course, and the feedback confirming or correcting. Sometimes you just want to calibrate and say, hey, this is what your goals have been. This is where you actually are. This is where we're missing the mark a little bit. We got to bridge that gap so we can get you to the right expectation that we have, and then we're going to move forward together. And they start to feel that there's some give and take there and some respect. So it's very, very expansive stuff. There's a lot to it. I know I just talked pretty much 30 minutes straight. I'm going to take a quick breather and let Chef Nick jump in and give a few pieces on any of that really speaks out to him. And then you all can do some Q&A with us for a little while. Chef Nick, what do you think?
Yeah, a lot of really good stuff there. A lot of good questions in the chat. So to kind of give, I'll kind of answer the questions in the chat with a little thing about the company that I used to work for. So I worked for the largest food company in the world. Okay, they're like a parent company. They're up here, and they have a bunch of little companies underneath them, worldwide. Okay, and so what I did was I would go into large corporate buildings and set up a cafe for their employees, right? So I told you I used to work at Paramount Pictures in Hollywood. It's a big movie studio. I've worked at Charles Schwab, which is a finance investing company here in Colorado. All sorts of different accounts within that company. So even though I worked in California, I worked in Denver and Colorado, right? We had some basic recipes and some basic setups of the stations in each account. There was over like 3,000 accounts in North America, right? So each one of those accounts can have their different field and their different clientele, right? I'm in LA, I'm in Hollywood, got some fancy clientele. Then I'm here in Denver where, maybe people don't have as much money to spend. So, we have different menus items on the menu there. But like we had a grill, and every single account you'd walk into, we had a grill with burgers. They were all portioned exactly the same, right? Cooked the same on a flat top where we smash the burger, you season it with salt and pepper. We have brioche buns and their choice of toppings. It's the same in every account. We had a chicken breast, same in every account. We had, a deli setup that had similar items in every account. And then I'm allowed to make my own menu for my entree. We had a different entree every day. Still within the realm of what our company had. We had thousands of recipes that were online that we could use. All right. So we could pick and choose what recipes we're going to do. So there's a little leeway there, right? To kind of create your own vibe and atmosphere. But everywhere you go, you have a grill. You set it up this way. It should look this way. Here are your main staples. This is how you break it down. And I could walk into any single one and any of the I think we're in all 50 states, right? And then Europe and South America. I can walk into any of those and it's going to be the same vibe, right? It's the same with fast food, right? We talk about you go to McDonald's and you get a Big Mac here, right? Now I'm going to go across the country to this McDonald's and get a Big Mac. It should be the same, right? So that's where we kind of get into those standard operating procedures and just that kind of like, that training and just you want your company or whatever it is that you're going to be working at to be, the same throughout. You never want any kind of random things thrown at you. And then someone was talking about recipes. Who was that? Tom? Was that Tom? A recipe book with company secrets. I've never worked for a restaurant or a food company that's like, shh, no, you can't learn this. I think KFC comes to mind with their spice blend for the chicken. I don't know if they have like a spice guy or a spice girl or whatever that makes like, oh, you can't learn this. And then Adam's talking about his own recipes. I mean, if you're reinventing the wheel on a recipe, congratulations, Adam. Bottle it, license it, whatever. But like I said, if I make French onion soup in a restaurant, I can't say, oh, Chef Jamie, you can't do French onion soup. Because I don't own it. It's French onion soup, right? So again, you'd have to have like the most insane, crazy spice blend. And even then someone could replicate it on accident. And there's really not much you could do about it. Like I said, I don't work for KFC, never have. I know they have their secret blend, But if I were to magically come up with my own blend that tasted exactly like KFC, what am I going to say? Like, oh, oops, like can't be like, oh, we're coming after you, Chef Nick. So keep that in mind. If you're trying to make your own spice company, your own sauce company that you sell things in the stores, that's one thing. But if you're a restaurant, you can't really own something like it just doesn't work that way.
You want people trying to, I wanted people trying to replicate my stuff. I remember when I had my restaurant and people would be trying to do what we were doing. It was like people would be, oh, I saw that they put, some short rib on the menu. And I'm like, great. They're going to try. They're not going to do what we're doing. They're going to do their own thing. It's going to have their own flavor. They didn't get it from the same supplier necessarily. They didn't use the same exact sauce. They didn't use the same exact build. There's just never going to be that perfect replication. We have a hard enough time replicating recipes just inside our own four walls sometimes. Yeah. So I mean, it's almost a compliment for if you want to be if you can be the trailblazer, be the one to get it down, and then everybody wants to kind of follow suit. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We like being trendsetters. We'll just be the next one. As soon as that runs out of room, we'll just start into something else and just keep going. So it's very, very hard. And I think trying to hide your recipes from your employer is maybe what I was getting there. You want to hide your own personal recipes. I mean, that's a thing, you do want to have your own personal recipes, but a lot of employers, sometimes you read the fine print in your employee handbook and it's like any recipe developed here is ours, so there's like some interesting stuff there. So, think about that, but it's not really something you should be very worried about. You should be taking it as a compliment. People are trying to replicate what you're doing. So we got a couple hands up. Thomas, go ahead.
Thank you. The reason I brought up recipe books is it's kind of like a SOP, because you're telling people how to make this dish the same all the time. And like I've seen the Norwegian Cruise Line book, to be honest, and it's the picture, the ingredients, and the method. But recipes cannot be copyrighted. They are a process. So you can't go to the trademark and copyright office and get a copyright on a recipe. But things like you were saying, Chef Nick, on KFC, I'm sure they have a commissary where they mix those spices and ship them over. They're not going to tell people how to mix it in the kitchen. So that kind of controls it. But my last point was I worked for a chef at a Jewish deli, and he made a chicken liver pate that everyone loved. And then I went over to another restaurant, and one of his line cooks were at that restaurant. And he kept asking for the chicken liver pate because he thought we had stole it from him. So that's kind of the issue I was looking at too.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, best thing to do is not copy, and you're going to keep yourself out of hot water. If people are going to copy you, I mean, you can consult an attorney and see what's what, but I think 9 times out of 10, you're not going to have a whole lot to do. They're going to say, show me the recipe, and it's pretty hard to enforce that stuff. So food's a little bit of the Wild West in some ways, unless you're, a big corporate group, then maybe you have a leg to stand on from, higher ups taking, confidential information out. But a lot of times those guys are signing confidentiality and non-compete clauses. So there's certain things that you can't do. When I was a managing partner with Blue & Brands, I mean, I left and I couldn't sell steak for 2 years. I wasn't able to sell steak to a certain amount, so there's contracts and things in place. Those are the things that really control that, not so much just the day-to-day, recipe theft, if you will.
Well, my last comment on that, I worked for a husband and wife team. They were my restaurant parents when I was young. And about 5 years ago, and this is after 30 something years, the owner gave me his recipes, and I go, Bob, I know all your recipes. And he goes, take them anyway. So it's already in my head. So it's not, it's still processes and doing the right thing, because you're learning how to do it correctly, even with different ingredients.
Yeah, I mean, you can always find a way, but you're still going to R&D your own products, and it's still going to be tough to replicate an entire restaurant of recipes. I mean, I've been gone from my restaurant for a year. I'm having trouble remembering them all off by heart. I have them all written down, but still, there's little best practices, tribal knowledge, tips and tricks, all kinds of things that you kind of forget and get lost in translation. So it's very, very hard to replicate and enforce. So.
Yeah, and most owners don't like you passing around the recipe book in the kitchen. I've noticed they kind of like, what are you looking at? What do you need?
That's silly. I want everyone to know how we're making it. It's just like, when people go out there and try to replicate, it's like, it's honestly, it's a compliment. If they are mad because we're doing something better than them, it's just like, do better then. I mean, like, we can't help that we have the best this and you also serve it. Ours may be totally different. It's exactly the same. Why do that? You want to be better. So it's just like, take it up a notch.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I remember every restaurant out there, and the older the restaurant, like, the more it is, it's like, I originated this. And then the place across the street is like, no, 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 I originated it. And then the one downtown is like, no, like I'm sure that's, in like major city, like, like a
Philly
Philly
cheesesteaks.
cheesesteak. Yeah,
Yeah.
or,
Yeah.
an Italian beef sandwich or the hot dog or a hamburger. Like I was the first, hamburger place ever. And then they're like, no, I was, so like, like we're saying, it's all, who
It doesn't
knows
matter.
the truth out there. Look on the condiment aisle. Like I want everyone to like look at their local condiment aisle, like at their grocery store. There's a million different kinds of a specific, like of barbecue sauce, of even ketchup, right? There's like 20 different types of ketchup that you could buy, things like that. So it's like, okay, who's right, who's wrong? There's really, no way to ever really tell. So,
I find it best
for
not
me,
to. Yeah. Go ahead, Chef Nick.
yeah, I just say, like, when you get into the corporate setting, I mean, like I just said, I had a book. It goes to every single station. If you work at the grill station, here's your book as your standard operating procedures. We had recipes. As a chef, I want you to follow the recipes because it's going to help with food costs. If my cooks are just throwing stuff into a pan willy-nilly, all of a sudden, my food cost goes up by 5%, which I need in order to keep my lights on, or whatever the case, because they're just throwing stuff in. And then when we're serving our guests, there's, we would have like ounces that we would serve, and you're going to do that in the restaurant industry. I'm serving a 6-ounce steak, an 8-ounce steak, or whatever. If I just give them a 10-ounce steak and, whatever, we're going to charge the same price, now I'm losing money. So having those recipes, having those guidelines, if you're working in a restaurant where they're like, no, you can't know the recipes, you shouldn't even know how to cook. It's like, what are you doing? Why am I here? I need to be at a place where I'm learning, I'm growing, and they're teaching me how to do things properly. Because when you get into your own establishment, and we had a question in the chat about, is it better to own your own place or work for someone? Again, I'll never tell you not to open your own thing and follow your dream, but when that place closes down, because it's not usually if, it's when a restaurant closes, right? It's so nice, it's not nice, it's a very terrible experience. I've been a part of them, right? And it's like, I'm so sorry your restaurant shut down and your house is now belongs to the bank. I'm going to see you later. I'm going to go to this next restaurant now, right? So keep that in mind. When you own something, you're not just, throwing some money at it. You usually have collateral, or it's a stressful situation. So keep that in mind.
And another thing to think about there is, just like Chef Nick, I mean, we're creating experiences in these restaurants, and the same experience is not going to be had no matter what you do. Now, you may have two food items that are very similar and close to it, but I promise you that this item here, made by somebody full of passion in a really strong team in a great environment with support from the leadership team and set up for success with solid training, is going to make it better than this person over here who is not going to be trained the same way, have the same standards, the same level of expectations. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to compute. And they're in different atmospheres anyway. So the truth is, it's really apples and oranges, with all these different things. And, another thing, Tom, just to your point of stealing recipes or anybody taking something. I mean, if let's say you have a fried chicken joint where you're making the best fried chicken for 30 miles, you're already doing it and you're doing it successfully and you're busy. Why would any of your people go 5 miles on the road and be like, you know what, we're going to reinvent fried chicken. We're going to take all the recipes and do it better. It's like, they're already doing it amazing. You missed the boat. They're already doing it. You should open a sushi place, like you should do something different. So you want to try to kind of do your own thing. And that's, a lot of people kind of come to that idea once they're like, oh, I got the ranch recipe. It's like, well, I mean, they're already doing that in 2,000 locations. It's not a big deal for, to have that. It's all over the internet anyway. Farah, go ahead.
I just want to say on that, it's true. There's very few places that can replicate success. But Atlanta, we have Antico Pizza, which is the biggest pizza place in the Southeast. And Giovanni's been doing it for 10 years. And one of his workers went down the street and opened 2 restaurants. And he's successful. They're all surviving.
But they're also different. He didn't go open Giovanni's Pizza with 2 eyes in it. He opened up a different restaurant with his own things. He probably had some similarities from best practices that he learned, but he did something different with a different atmosphere, a different sound, a different a different leadership style with his employees. So there's love in the food is my guess. And I mean, that's the difference, right? On some of this stuff.
It was a different color box basically. And,
Yeah.
Giovanni could have sued him if you wanted, but the pie's big enough for everybody.
Yeah, well, that's the truth. That's for sure.
But
Fair,
not,
go-
you don't have a lot of theft, like I'm saying. I'm just giving you some examples.
Oh no, I appreciate all the questions. Believe me, it's not frustrating at all. This is all great stuff to to talk about. This is why we're here, right? So no, great questions.
Let other people talk.
Farah, go ahead.
Yes, chef. My question is regarding the menus. When you are making the menus, what are the things you have to take into consideration to prepare a menu, or what are the guidelines like? So I know you are working for different, like a group of people, like making a menu for the hospital or for the patients or like a corporation, but other things, are you talking to the people in charge? What are the information you are collecting? Based on that, you make the menu.
Yeah. So I can go on and on about menu development for a long time. And what I would probably honestly say is that you do have a menu development class. I would love to talk more about it, but you do have a menu development class that's going to be coming down the road. It's either next or the one right after. And I'm going to just kind of put a pin in that question for when you get down there, because you're going to really be able to dive into that. And the reason being that menu development is a big thing. It's something that is it takes a long time to get there. Most chefs have a really hard time getting there because it takes years and years of practice. Menu descriptions, sure, we can do that. But the proper balance of what I call a P-mix, right? The product mix and data on what we're selling and how much we're selling it for and what it costs versus what we're selling here and how that fluctuates with food cost and profits is a very expansive thing. And they have menu development consultants who would come in and really look at your operation and find out what the public wants, because of course that matters. But also, do you have the right amount of variety? Are the ingredients working together so that we don't have 500 ingredients for 30 recipes? Rather, we have 50 recipes and we have 100 ingredients that all kind of coexist and can be a multitude of different builds to make different things. So all of that stuff has to harmonize together, and then where they're coming from in the kitchen, right? So we've got, is everything on saute? That's a problem, right? We just can't have that person working, these guys over here twiddling their thumbs. So how do we balance the flow of the work as well? So it's a very tough thing. The best thing to do when starting is to start small and grow into it. So that, if you're opening a brand new restaurant, you don't want to have a huge menu. You want to start with those basics right there, make sure everything's profitable. And then you start to pick and choose and you start to place things where they should be and how you're going to do it. So it's a very big question. A lot of times food vendors have a menu, consultant on hand who can come in and kind of help you dive into some of that and work with their products and work with that food cost piece as well. So there's just so much to go into it. I wouldn't want to really open up that can of worms just yet, but it's a very, very big deal. Your menu is the most important employee you have. It's a salesperson, that menu represents you, it represents the whole operation, and it's a salesman, it's selling for you. So if it's not doing its job, you need to kind of, coach and teach it and make it do its job so that it's bringing you the best amount of dollars. We talk about cover price, how much per person, what's the average we're getting from people? How do we tweak it? Do we need to raise costs here? It's always about portion and cost, or a price, right? The retail number or the portion. One of them is going to be off, and you're going to have to make some adjustments and find the right piece while not sacrificing food quality, right? So that's my 1 minute or 2 minute answer to it. It's a big question, so I won't bite off too much, but hopefully that helped a little bit.
So can I ask one quick question? Is there any job out there working as a menu developer for the companies, or?
100%. There are lots of them. A lot of them are in corporate worlds, but if you can get into that private consulting piece where you're just a consultant privately and you get a name for yourself, you can certainly make a great living from doing food cost analysis and menu development together. The two of them together is a great way to go. So if that's something that you see on the horizon, you got to be good with math, you got to be good with ingredients and conversions. And then you have to have a marketing piece, a little bit of a marketing eye, and have an eye for that kind of stuff and design, and and then know the basics, of course. So, but getting into it on a corporate level, there's all kinds of things to get an entry level and then kind of grow with the company and then maybe branch off and do some of your own things.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Good questions. Julie, go right ahead.
So my question is a little bit different, and it was a personal experience, but so talking about making sure you're employees are happy, so you're not having to, a high turnover rate. How would you handle this situation? So I live in small town Wyoming, and the town was maybe 1,000 people. I went to work for the newspaper, and I was the first person my editor had hired with a degree in graphic design. And the bookkeeper / secretary decided to tell one of the employees that had been there for 17 years what I was making. And so it was about $1 less than she was making. And that created massive animosity. I mean, she was almost hostile the entire time I was there. I didn't stay long. I mean, he wanted me to stay, but I just, under those conditions, I just didn't feel comfortable, because when you're trying to be creative and you meet a lot of hostility, you actually create a chemical in your brain that stops the creative process. So how would you handle that situation?
Well, it's certainly a tough question. Sometimes you need to think about, what your corporate, policy and vision is for your core values, right? So as a part of that, and the trust between employees, the trust, I mean, if a secretary has got access to everything, why is that happening? First off, they shouldn't necessarily have access to all of your pay stubs just because they figured out that they can press, oh, look here, QuickBooks, I'm going to open it up and I can see what everyone's making. That's a real problem. So that's the first issue, and that standard, how do we fix that so that it doesn't happen again? But then two, it's, you certainly have to look at talent and decide talent versus maintenance. Which one is which? Do I, am I going to hold on to high talent, but they give me a lot of maintenance, or do I want someone who's more in the middle with very low maintenance as far as managing relationships and managing that kind of conflict? So it's a conflict resolution piece. Honestly, if the secretary was very talented and you were very talented and people involved were talented, I had a talented team, and that was a mistake, I'd probably approach it with some conflict resolution. I would get everyone, get the two involved into a room, mediate a solution, and come to an understanding on what the expectation is moving forward. There'd be some apologies due, and hopefully it could continue. If it couldn't, then that'd be unfortunate, and maybe someone would lose their job. Who knows? But that's certainly a pretty big misconduct piece right there for them to be divulging information. So most likely, I would X that one. It sounded like you were there as the creative talent, and then we had someone answering phones, talking shop about people behind their back. I'm not big on that. It's just so terrible. It just, nothing brings down the team more than talking about people, right? We have a lot of things to talk about, ideas being number one, right? That's our goal. We need to talk about ideas on what we can do and what we can make this company and how we can get the ball down the field. If we're not talking about growth and building our company, then we just end up talking about people, and that's just such a terrible thing to do. So now that I think about it, I'd probably be leaning more towards the termination piece and holding on to my talent. So unfortunately, that probably didn't happen for you. It probably just became a hostile work environment. Ignoring the problem and sticking your head in the sand is just as bad as making the wrong decision. It's like, if you don't take some action, you just end up being someone with no courage. And you got to have courage to make things stick and make things happen and present your company vision and keep things alive. So very, very difficult piece to be in, but that's what leaders sign up for. And usually we're up to the challenge, and sometimes it takes some mistakes to kind of get there. So it's a growing thing for that leader as well, I'm sure.
He was a great boss. I think it was difficult because the town was so small.
Yeah.
And I just ultimately decided to move on to a different situation, which was a lot less stressful and allowed me to be a lot more creative and not have to deal with the drama. So
sometimes it's meant to be, and things just kind of happen. It's just not the right environment. It sounds like you found the right environment. And that's the goal, right? So good for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Chef.
Yep. All right. Do we have any more questions out there, Chef Nick? You got anything you want to add there? Sorry, I've been kind of talking again nonstop.
No, you're good.
Nothing left in the chat.
Major here in the chat. We got off subject, but we were just talking about wine for our court bouillon.
Talking about wine and burritos in there.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Yeah, no, but hopefully I answered those questions.
Good.
Well,
Well,
no, we're looking good.
yeah, I say we might as well go ahead and wrap it up. We're coming up on the hour here. So this hour goes by quick. We know that. So, thanks for all the participation, guys. Really good questions. Jump in there, take on that week 2 SOP assignment right away. We can do it right after we just talked. Everyone just log out, go right to their site, right to the week 2 SOP, open it up, knock it out. It'll take you 5 minutes. It's a lot of points. Okay. I want to say 30% of this class is in those 2 assignments. So really get in there and get them done because they mean a lot for this class. Okay, so don't delay. Remember, we want to knock things off our plate, be waiting for the next stuff to come instead of chasing our tail saying, oh, well, I have this due, I have this due. Let's get ahead of it, get everything knocked off. That's the best way to manage your time and be disciplined. Okay, so everybody have a great night. Thanks so much, and happy cooking. See you, Chef Nick.
See ya.
Bye.